Full disclosure, the voice you are listening to now is artificially generated, brought to you by satisphonic.com. See the link in the description for more details. What are the professions that most people think is hard but actually isn't? A lot of office jobs are hard to get, but easy to do. I remember my first office job after a lifetime of service industry and mechanical work. I could not believe how easy it was. I was replacing a guy retiring. He had a full-time job with the appropriate workload. I would be done by mid-Tuesday. My boss didn't care too much, just do some training. I did do that a bit, but I'd also take like 3 lunches. I was bored out of my mind, so I started taking on and asking for more work. I continued with this attitude. I was the hardest working, most productive guy on any team I was on. After a decade or so of this, I noticed that even though I was the one pulling all the weight, I was paid the same and sometimes less than my teammates. Sure, I'd get called out as a rock star, but I'd prefer maybe a bigger bonus percent instead of an award and a coffee mug. A guy I'd call my mentor at the time said, "Bro, take your foot off the gas. Not all the way, but just keep pace with traffic. Hit the gas when the boss is looking. The reward for good work is more work. Hit the gas when the boss is looking." My job allowed it before the pandemic. It just took a bit of planning ahead since nearly all meetings were still in person. If I knew ahead of time I would woof on a given day, I'd start saving up emails with my boss in them for that day. On the day itself, I'd answer the urgent emails when needed, but for the rest of the day I'd just do whatever. Slack off, do chores, maybe play some video games. But I would make sure those boss emails would go out at steady intervals, so it would seem I was very busy catching up on things. God bless whoever invented schedules then. 8.32 and 5.36. Excellent works, Hopkins. I would go insane. My 16-year-old worked in an office last summer doing inventory work. The business he worked at bought another business and were transferring all the inventory into their computer system. 3 days in, he had a woman come up to him in the office and tell him to take more breaks because he was working too fast. Lol. Many times at support is incredibly chill. There were days I did nothing but play around on my phone because I didn't have any tickets. I say many times because some companies will assign you a bunch of busy work to keep you occupied. My IT buddy was let go because everything is running smooth, so not sure why we need him. It ran smooth because he set it up to run smooth and maintain things. You can guess what happened a few weeks after he was gone. Lol. Classic McNaught approach to it. Things are broken. What the hell do we pay you for? Things are working. What the hell do we pay you for? When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. Futurama. I went from a fairly high-paced job in the private sector to an office job in the government, and it was terrible. I was used to moving around all the time, having specific timelines for big and small projects. The new office job was more whatever, whenever, we still get paid type of atmosphere. I could finish my work within the first 30 minutes every day. In the beginning, I would walk around and offer help to colleagues, but there was little to be had. I lasted a month. Then another job I had applied for at the time came through and I didn't hesitate. Sanitation, garbage man, is not the dirty, back-breaking job that it used to be, with very few usually seasonal exceptions. You'd also be surprised at the pay. For a person which drives a truck, that's ok, but the ones who need to manually segregate trash on a tape, it's not so good. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a garbage man when I grew up, because I thought they only worked 1 day a week when they drove by to pick up our trash. Security for sure, but specifically unarmed security. Having worked at a casino, and then with a contract company, think Garda World, Allied Universal, etc., the hardest part about my job was the learning phase. Security usually runs like clockwork, unless you're in a particularly bad neighborhood. But even then, if you're unarmed, you're just a glorified doorman to keep insurance happy. Even armed security guards don't have it as bad overall, but the responsibility is sometimes more than the average person is willing to take on. I did unarmed security with Giffords for a couple of years. It's not difficult, and I had a great location. Honestly, the hard part was dealing with asshole co-workers who somehow think less of you whenever you are on shift together. Man, we are babysitting, not fighting for freedom over here. No one gives a shit that you were infantry. There are many jobs that this might apply to. I think the difference is that in many of these easy jobs, you only get one mistake. Mistakes can either be catastrophic or fatal. So the tasks may be easy, but you're being paid for vigilance, focus, and the ability to reproduce a task at the same level over and over. To me, that's the difference between easy, low-paying jobs and easy, high-paying jobs. If you mess up, no one dies. For me, it was the boredom that took its toll. At my casino gig, I ended up biting my nails down to the cuticle a few times on slow days. Already been a biter for years. At my other gig, it was even worse, but I was left alone. For 6 of my 10 hours, I was by myself with no cameras, so you can imagine what all I got up to in that time. Ergonomics. My job basically consists of saying that blue on blue is shit if you want your user to know what they're doing. My ex was some kind of business architect engineer who made amazing money. He literally did nothing all day. I know this because he worked from home most of the time and would only go to the office when there was some kind of team bonding activity. His day was 5 games with his work laptop next to him, and all his team's messages were pretty personal conversations amongst his co-worker friends. I was like, well, I made wrong choices in life lot. Dermatology. Just remember the 6 rules. If it's dry, wet it. If it's wet, dry it. If they're not on steroids, start steroids. If they're on steroids, take them off. If you don't know what it is, biopsy it. If you do know what it is, biopsy it. Dick simple. My former neighbor was an air traffic controller. He said it was super easy, like playing a video game. That surprised me. I'm an engineer. It's not terribly difficult if you have the right mindset. I tell people it's 90% experience, so it's not like anybody can just do it well from day one. But it really isn't the math that's the difficult part. I'm about 2 years into an engineering job, and the maths and science behind everything is pretty standard. It's knowing when things are appropriate or inappropriate for certain projects that gets me. I work in finance. Hard to get in, not very hard to do. Finance is so fucking boring, man. It's so repetitive, same shit every single day. Most jobs are quite easy if you're naturally inclined to doing that type of work. And they're hard if you aren't. My husband works in community relations. He talks about his work as writing a press release or talking with reporters as easy, but that would stress me the fuck out. I am genuinely convinced that most office jobs could be done by 15-year-olds. The hard part about these jobs is getting them, since you're usually competing against 1,000 other people who also want it. The hard part is not the work, it's the office politics. That 15-year would be a lamb to the slaughter. This is so disgustingly true. I have an office job and it's easy as fuck. But the office politics are exhausting. If I know a toxic co-worker is going to be away on holidays, I literally feel like I'll be on holidays. Co-workers are the toughest part of my job. It isn't sexy work, and it does require some training, but once you're in, you're in. I've seen so many people phone it in. Basically just move the computer mouse enough to keep their status online, but not really produce much. Corporate management's job seems like it's just throwing wrenches at people below them. The best managers I've seen are the ones that just fuck off and leave you alone. Pretty low bar when doing flat out nothing is considered good. Brain sturgeon. Most people misunderstand and think they heard brain surgeon, but brain sturgeons just bash the brains out of sturgeons, the fish, which ain't that hard to bash. Same for nuclear science fishes. Banker, it's basically just playing with money that you can lose.